I'm joined by Congressman-elect Dan Crenshaw for District 2. You mentioned that you're pretty tired right now. I can only imagine the number of calls you've been getting and how exciting this must be. I think I saw on Twitter you said you called your grandmother first.
Yeah, well, that was a pretty cool phone call. I'll tell you the story on this one. So we were talking, and she's like, Dan, I can't find the results on TV. This was this morning. I can't find the results on TV or the internet. She's like, did you win? And I was like, yes, Grandma, we won. You know, it was. She's like, oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, so she was really happy. That was the best phone call so far, definitely.
How is your whole family reacting to this? This is a big change for your life.
It is. Yeah, we're just reacting, I think, with elation and honor. I mean, it's just such an honor to represent the great people of the 2nd District. And we spent the last year getting to know as many as we can, connecting with as many voters as we can. And I just couldn't be prouder to have been chosen to represent them in Congress.
And District 2 is what a lot of people are calling just an extremely gerrymandered district. You represent everyone from Kingwood over to West Houston, down into Montrose. How can anyone begin to represent all those people? Does it overwhelm you, or do you see it as being easier than people imagine?
I think it's easier than people imagine. We're not all that different, you know. Let's start there, right? As Americans, like, we aren't as different as we keep saying we are. You know, we're all Texans, we're all Houstonians. It's a funny shaped district, but it's also diverse in a way that Texas is diverse. And if you start breaking down the ethnicity and everything, I kind of love that there's different neighborhoods, like in Rice and Montrose and then Kingwood, but a lot of the people share a lot of the same values. You know, like we all want an economy that works for us, right? We all want wages to be higher, okay? We all want healthcare to be cheaper. We aren't that different, okay? We want communities that are safe, you know, so let's work towards that.
And you mentioned last night in a couple of your interviews that once you get into Washington, once you get started, particularly now that we know the Democrats are controlling the House, you want to work on things everyone can agree on. You mentioned flood control. What does that look like? Day one, you show up. Who are you picking up the phone and calling? Who are you going to go talk to? How do you start on that road?
Army Corps of Engineers, you know. Flat out, that's the answer. That's how I operate from the federal level. That's especially how I contribute. You know, we need to look at what projects need to be done by the Army Corps of Engineers, which ones are already ongoing and need to be expedited. How do we protect our district from flooding? As everyone knows, the 2nd District was hit very hard by Harvey. You know, we encapsulate Addicks, Barker reservoirs. We have Kingwood area, Lake Houston area, hit very hard by the floods, and that's really the #1 issue, and it's bipartisan. No partisanship on flooding.
Have you already had conversations with some folks across the aisle about how you're going to approach that together?
Not in Congress, no. We're going to meet everybody hopefully next week in orientation, and we'll certainly be working together.
You know, what are some other issues that you're going to be looking at? Because flooding obviously is one that all Houstonians worry about. But in terms of other issues, when you're talking about people who maybe share values across a wide district, but maybe have different needs, what else are you going to be prioritizing? Well,
you know, as you pointed out, we're going to be in the minority. So I don't have a wish list anymore, right? So what can we work on together that I think we can all agree on? Again, flooding infrastructure is a big one. Another big one is, you know, how do we expand our middle skill labor force, right? So apprenticeship programs, trade skills, like how do we promote that? Maybe it's through public-private partnerships. I mean, a lot of ideas are out there. And again, I don't see any reason why Democrats and Republicans wouldn't agree on this. You got 7 million job openings. It's a great problem to have and a great economy.
Right.
But when you have that problem, you want people with the right skills to be able to get into those jobs. And a lot of them are middle skill. They're not necessarily like 4-year degrees. I think we need to, you know, get away from pushing students towards that. Hey, let's give you a lot of debt and a degree that doesn't get you a great job. Or let's put you through, you know, a pipe fitting school that's only 6 months and it's $70,000 a year. I mean, this is kind of what we're looking at and ways to do that. And I think, you know, it's finding the skills that are right for everybody.
Back in the 70s, majority of Congress were veterans and people who had served our country through the military. That number a lot lower now. How do you feel that your service is going to serve you, considering you don't have the political experience, but talk about your military experience?
Sure, I would say twofold, right? One is practical experience in foreign affairs, national security, you know, actually understand what it's like to be on the ground, understand what it means to ask men and women in our armed services to actually go overseas and fight or defend our country. That's important. It's important to understand the intelligence community, right? Something that's kind of shrouded in secrecy all the time, right? I know what questions to ask because I've been in this world for a while. And then there's another form of answering that question, which is kind of the leadership part. understanding that leadership in the military is really it's about connecting with people, it's about serving your people, it's about taking care of your people, right? It really is that simple, right? And there's all these other attributes to it as well, but if you kind of simplify leadership in that way, it helps ground you. And it helps you serve the people the way that frankly, all members of Congress should be serving the people they represent.
Do you feel like Congress and our government overall is serving our veterans properly? We know that there are issues with some of our veterans programs, but do you feel like we're on the right path to start solving those?
I would put that in the category of bipartisanship as well. You know, we're always looking for ways to improve our veteran health care, our veterans services. It has gotten a lot better over the years. You know, ask any veteran. That doesn't mean it's perfect. That doesn't mean there isn't work to do. I use the VA. I will continue to use the VA just so that I still know, what's going on in there. And every VA is different. I don't like to stand on a soapbox and bash the VA. They're hardworking people, but there's ways that I think Congress can help make it better and more efficient for our veterans.
Now that we know that the Democrats have control of the House, and now that we know that Attorney General Jeff Sessions today announced that he's going to be submitting his resignation, or has submitted that, the House being controlled by Democrats, they've said that they're going to use that to move forward with some investigations potentially into the president. The president has said he's going to be pushing back against that. You as a Republican sort of now sit in the middle. How do you plan to handle that, and what do you expect once you get there?
I would just ask my Democratic colleagues to do what they think is in the best interest of the nation. You know, if their goal was to take over the House and create complete chaos for the White House, how is that helpful? And I question whether it is. I will question whether these investigations are really necessary. I don't know what these investigations will look like. I've yet to see that, but I have heard word of it, as you have as well. I don't think the American people are looking for chaos in Washington. All right.
All right. Anything else you want people to know about you as you head in?
I'm, again, just so honored to serve this district. I just couldn't be more proud. It really is a dream come true, and we were able to share that dream with everyone else, and it caught fire, and we're really excited about it.
When was the moment, and where were you when you realized, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to run? Tell me about exactly where you were and when you maybe looked to your wife, Tara, and said,
yep,
let's do this. Okay,
so the story is, it was a friend of ours. He's become a very good friend and kind of mentor throughout the campaign. My friend John Noonan, I actually mentioned him last night in our victory speech. And he pointed out to us that we should run, that we were the right kind of people to run, just kind of out of the blue. And
where were you? What was going on at the time?
I was in his office. I was actually visiting D.C. I'd moved back home to work on Hurricane Harvey, rebuilding. I worked with Team Rubicon, and so we were in D.C. I was almost about to take a job at Department of Defense, actually, and then Ted Poe announced retirement. And this is my district. I'm going to be coming home to Spring for a very long time, and John said, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just go run for office? And I said, well, maybe, someday. I don't have any money. I don't have any political connections. How are we going to do that? He said, what district are you from? I said, the 2nd district. He's like, don't you know Ted Poe just announced retirement like last night? And so I went home and asked my wife, what do you think? And she said, well, just go for it. Yeah, let's do this. It was, she was dedicated right from the start. And I have to say again, John Noonan is very upset that I have more Twitter followers than he does now. So, if we can give a shout out to him and ask people to follow him on Twitter, that would be really nice.
How about for other people who've now seen your success, who are either veterans or just outside candidates and not from the political mainstream or have a background in this? What would be your advice to them in terms of considering and determining whether they're the right person for what you just went through in terms of your campaign process?
Well, this is America, so anything is possible. And I think people prove that on a daily basis. You have to know why you're doing it. Know why you're doing it and know how you want to share that dream with people, and people will respond.
And in terms of communication with your district, what's the best way for people to be speaking with you while you're up in Washington?
Well, we're not going to stay up in Washington. We'll be back here a lot, and we'll be on the ground just like we've always been. Constituent services are probably the most important thing that a member does. And we'll take that very seriously, and we just look forward to serving everybody and being here with everyone. And I'll continue to, I think, spend the next 2 years the way I continued when I spent the last year, and that's on the ground all the time with the good people here.
All right. Congressman-elect, how do you feel about being called congressman at this point?
And it's weird. Yeah. It's weird. I have to get used to it. But you know, I guess we'll start with congressman-elect, and then we'll transition to congressman on January 3rd.
All right. Congressman-elect Dan Crenshaw, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.